On March 26, 2000, Vladimir Putin was elected as the president of Russia for the first time. Putin's election came at a time of political instability in Russia. His predecessor, Boris Yeltsin, had resigned on December 31, 1999, leaving the country in a state of uncertainty. Putin's victory was seen as a turning point for Russia, as he promised to restore stability and strengthen the country's economy. At the time of the election, Putin was relatively unknown to the public. He had served as the head of the Federal Security Service, FSB, and as the prime minister under Yeltsin, but he had not been involved in national politics for long. Despite this, Putin quickly gained popularity among the Russian people for his tough stance on crime and terrorism. Putin's main opponent in the election was Communist Party leader Gennady Zyuganov. However, Putin won a decisive victory, capturing over 52% of the vote. His victory was seen as a clear indication that the Russian people were ready for change and were willing to give Putin a chance to lead the country. In the years following his election, Putin worked to stabilize the Russian economy and strengthen the country's position on the world stage. He implemented a number of reforms aimed at improving the business climate in Russia, and he worked to strengthen ties with other world powers. Today, Putin remains a controversial figure in Russian politics. While he is still popular among many Russians, he has faced criticism for his handling of issues such as human rights and political opposition. Nevertheless, his election on March 26, 2000, marked a significant turning point in Russian history and continues to shape the country's political landscape to this day. Vladimir Putin's rise to power began in the Soviet Union, where he worked as a KGB officer. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Putin entered politics and quickly rose through the ranks. He served as the deputy mayor of St. Petersburg and then went on to serve as the head of the Federal Security Service, FSB, the successor to the KGB. Putin's time in the FSB was marked by controversy. He was accused of suppressing political opposition and cracking down on journalists critical of the government. However, Putin's tough stance on security and his popularity among the Russian people earned him the attention of then-President Boris Yeltsin. In 1999, Yeltsin appointed Putin as prime minister, and just a few months later, he resigned as president, making Putin the acting president. Putin used his new position to crack down on corruption and strengthen the power of the presidency. He was widely popular among the Russian people for his tough stance on security and his efforts to restore order to the country. When the presidential election of 2000 came around, Putin was the clear frontrunner. He won the election with 52.9% of the vote and became the second president of the Russian Federation. His rise to power was swift and impressive, and he quickly established himself as one of the most powerful leaders in the world. The 2000 presidential election in Russia was highly controversial, with several candidates running against Putin. The most notable of these were Gennady Zyuganov of the Communist Party and Grigory Yavlinsky of the Liberal Yabloko Party. However, Putin was widely seen as the frontrunner due to his popularity and the backing of powerful figures in the government. The campaign was marred by allegations of media bias, with many accusing Putin of using state-controlled media to his advantage. In addition, there were reports of voter intimidation and other irregularities, although the election was generally seen as free and fair. On March 26, 2000, the election was held, and Putin emerged as the clear winner with over 50% of the vote. His victory was celebrated by his supporters, who saw him as a strong leader who could restore order and stability to Russia after years of turmoil. However, his opponents were skeptical of his intentions and feared that he would undermine democracy and human rights in Russia. After the election, Putin was declared the winner with 53% of the vote, securing him the presidency for the first time. His victory was not unexpected, as he had been leading in the polls leading up to the election. However, there were allegations of vote rigging and other irregularities during the election, which were criticized by domestic and international observers. During Putin's first term in office, he implemented several policies aimed at consolidating his power and strengthening the Russian state. He reorganized the government, cracked down on the media and political opposition, and waged a brutal war in Chechnya. Putin also made efforts to boost the Russian economy, which had been in shambles after the collapse of the Soviet Union. However, Putin's first term was not without controversy. In 2003, the Russian oil tycoon Mikhail Khodorkovsky was arrested and charged with fraud and tax evasion. Many believed that his arrest was politically motivated, as Khodorkovsky had been a vocal critic of Putin's government. This incident was seen as a sign of Putin's growing authoritarianism and willingness to suppress dissent. Overall, Putin's first term in office set the stage for his long and controversial political career. His leadership style, policies, and actions during this time would shape Russia's trajectory for years to come. Putin's presidency has had a significant impact on both Russia and the world. One of his main focuses has been on foreign policy, and he has worked to expand Russia's influence in the world. One example of this is his annexation of Crimea in 2014, which was widely condemned by the international community. In terms of economic policies, Putin has been credited with stabilizing the Russian economy after the chaos of the 1990s. However, his policies have also been criticized for favoring the oligarchs and not doing enough to address income inequality. Putin's relationship with the United States has been rocky at best. While there were some positive developments during his early years in office, such as the signing of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, START, tensions increased significantly following Russia's interference in the 2016 US presidential election. Overall, Putin's presidency has had a significant impact on the geopolitical landscape, both in Russia and globally.